Now, Nicholas Owens joins me now to have a look through the papers. He is, of course, a former BBC News and ITN presenter. Nicholas, lovely to see you this morning. Thank you for taking the time. We're going to do the paper review a little differently and give a kind of Remembrance Weekend digest. In a way, the Sunday Express summed up what happened yesterday very well in its headline, Dignity and Dishonour. Give us a summary of what we've seen so far, Nick.
Yes, well-chosen words indeed. And I'll tell you something that struck me this morning with the spread of newspapers that we can see. It's one of those quite rare occasions when every paper had the same story on its front page.
Yes.
There wasn't any descent into the fripperies of news, if you like. Everybody agreed this was the major story of the day. The scenes... to be expected, I think, once we knew that we're going to have big demonstrations by those in favour of the Palestinian cause. I don't think anybody quite realised what was going to happen at the cenotaph itself. I was driving back home last night. I'd been at an event and people had been hearing things and seeing things on their phones. They said, the Palestinians have stormed the cenotaph. I thought, oh, my goodness. Look, I do hope that is not the case. And, of course, it turned out not to be the case. It's this other rabble of nutters, may I call them that, who came up with the most of the trouble. But not only them, let's be clear, there was also trouble by people who wish to draw attention to the Palestinian cause in the light of what's happening in Gaza, letting off fireworks. I think it was in Belgravia, another part of London, and several policemen were hit in the face. I have a policeman's son in the Metropolitan Police, who's done his share of this sort of duty, not doing it now, I'm so pleased to say, and always awful when policemen get hurt. But in the big scale of things, you know, Camilla, when we look back, I'm old enough very much to remember the poll tax riots back in Margaret Thatcher's days. They were really serious disorder on the streets. What we saw yesterday, whatever you think of the Palestinian cause, and so on, and there's fringe people in that saying awful things. But basically, you had a peaceful demonstration by 300,000 people, which actually... And actually,
the policing operation, as you say, to basically cordon off the cenotaph seemed to work quite well. I appreciate that there was that incursion by some of the far-right groups. But at the same time, the cenotaph itself remained sacrosanct, and there was a degree of dignity to the events around that in comparison to some of the mob marauding that we witnessed, and also, as you say, some of the anti-Semitism that formed a part of the Palestinian side. There's still a conversation, of course, about Suella Braverman, Nick. I mean, is that a distraction? Should we still be talking about the Home Secretary? I'd be intrigued, not least because you're the father of a Met policeman or former Met policeman. Do you think...
he's a Met policeman today.
Still a Met policeman. She was very critical of the Met, saying that they pick favourites, play favourites. Also, she has been accused by Labour politicians, including Keir Starmer this morning, of inflaming the tensions. What do you think?
To be honest, I didn't. I thought Suella Braverman, sometimes she comes out and she provokes and gets a sort of discussion going, which is important to do, about all sorts of difficult issues. I think she was wrong on this one. To be absolutely honest. I know so well, partly because what I've done for a living over the years, had lots of dealings with the police, mostly on the right side, and also talking to my son a great deal about all these sorts of things. It's always a very, very difficult thing for the police. For a Home Secretary to attack police plans in public, I don't think that was a very, very clever idea at all. I've seen Home Secretaries in front of police federation, police union, if you like, closest they come to it. I've seen them having a very tough time, being sort of booed and everything else. That's understood, because that's all about pay and conditions and so on. But when it comes to the operational side, leave it to the police. Mark Rowley, I know him well. I remember him when he was Chief Constable of Surrey, which is where I live, and I interviewed him when he was there. He's a most impressive commissioner. We've had a succession of commissioners who've, you know, been controversy about them. Some weren't, frankly, very good at all. Cressida Dick had a difficult time for various other reasons. This is the best guy for the job at the moment. It looked to me as though there was in danger of undermining him. He's a tough fellow. He'll get through it, of course he will. But I don't think it was a clever
But there will be always people who will argue, and I think Ian Darkin-Smith was on this side of the argument, and we're going to be speaking to him in just a moment, that actually the march just should not have gone ahead. And even if it wasn't for the Met Police to use the powers that have been given to them by the government to try and take action, one has to ask the organisers of the pro-Palestinian march, why they decided to do this when they knew that it was going to inflame tensions. They could have marched on other days.
Well, I suppose they could. I'll be very honest with you, Camilla. Right? This discussion has gone on so much in all our homes and wherever you go, and people stop me on the streets to talk about
this.
My view is we live in a democracy, but the people who died, the people who served, my own father in the Second World War, my grandfather in the First World War. What was that all about? Their service and for those who died. It was about having a democracy where you do have opinions which very often you disagree with violently. Yes. As long as people do it in a peaceable way and don't break the law, that is fine with me. I know an awful lot of your viewers particularly won't agree with that, but to me, let's get on with it. Let's be thankful that we can do this in this country. You go to somewhere like, even somewhere just across the Channel, you go to France, demonstrations there are deliberately violent in a most appalling way, and police behaviour is very often terrible as well.